Welcome to my podcast story, the show where podcasters share the real journey behind their voices, from their first mic check to their biggest milestones. Every episode reveals the lessons, challenges, and breakthrough that shape a podcast star's journey. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I can't wait for you to hear today's story. Okay. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little bit about who you are outside of your professional title as a podcaster, a no-code expert, and business entrepreneur and all that? Who are you outside those titles?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Dan Hafner. I run Dapper No Code here in the United States. I'm located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a little bit north of there. So if anybody's ever heard of the Pittsburgh Steelers or anything, that's my football team.
Wow.
My wife and I are big fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But yeah, I really do love college football as well. I played college football, American football. And so I love watching, college football. We have, my wife and I have two dogs. We have a big dog and a little dog. So we kind of have all the different stuff. So I like taking them for walks, and we go to the, dog park and kind of make friends that way and stuff. We have a very good group of friends that we have here in Pittsburgh now. We're close to both of our families. So, that's pretty much a little bit about me. I guess I also do enjoy making my own wine. That's one of my hobbies that I love to do. I've been making my own wine batches for a couple of years now. So that's been a very fun hobby of mine. Yeah.
And I never could have thought of that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last time we spoke, you told me that what's the word? Can't remember the exact English word for it, but you told me you had to put one of your dogs down, and I'm really sorry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, we had three dogs, so we had two little ones and one big one, and one of our littler ones. I think we were supposed to have the podcast that day.
Yeah.
And the poor little guy, he had some kidney failure. So
that's
it was. Yeah, it was pretty tough. He was only 10 years old. We thought he would live a little bit longer, so it was a little bit of a bummer. But it's all over now. So we still have two very healthy doggies. So grateful for that.
Welcome. I want us to start from the very beginning. What first drew you into podcasting?
What first drew me into podcasting? So I had been going down the entrepreneurship journey. And I was I was talking about apps and no code and things like that. And I had an idea to kind of make a podcast to kind of go along with my app business, and the app that it was like a running and fitness application that I had published. So it's called Run Your Day. And it was kind of, I heard, everyone was like, hey, when you start, you got to publish, you got to do something. You got to either write a blog, or you got to do YouTube, you got to do podcasts, you got to do something. And I think I was just drawn to podcasting because I don't like to sit and write. I don't like to do that. My show's very unscripted. So I was like, blogging's not my thing. But then I didn't really want to get into the heavy editing that YouTube required and all that kind of stuff. So podcasting was perfect. I mean, when I started, I left my phone out in the other room, but I would literally just hold my phone up and I would record, and then I would publish, and I would do like 5-minute episodes. That was it. That was how I started. That's how I did like my first 50 episodes. Was I would just talk for 5-10 minutes and then just publish. I didn't edit. I didn't do music. I didn't do anything. So it was just, and then, being a guest on other shows and things like that turned into like, hey, you have a podcast, you want to come guest? And now I get to meet really cool people and just, have a really cool network of things. So, that was kind of how I got started with it.
The question I should have asked you now from the story you just shared, it should have been, what first drew podcasting to you? Because it seems to me like you chose podcasting versus podcasting, quote unquote, choose you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say podcasting chose me, but it's fun because I think a lot of us, as we go in our business, in our life, we kind of have like just these random thoughts that you kind of want to share. And to be honest, I'm not a big social media sharer. I don't post a lot of videos. I don't do a lot of things on Facebook or Instagram or things like that. So my podcast is kind of an outlet for me sometimes to get those thoughts out, to process through those thoughts and those maybe some of the feelings that I have or anything about business or life or whatever in a way that I get to do it for myself, but then I'm recording it and then I can share it with the world too.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of it's almost a form of therapy in some ways, for me to do the podcasting and stuff, because it lets you go through those things. That's how
Yeah.
I treat it, at least.
Yeah. You know how for sometimes you like, oh, I don't know if this would work out, but you're like, this is definitely not for me. Well, blogging at the time wasn't exactly. It was something that it was clear that, oh, writing is really not my thing. But sharing my thoughts and just speaking it out, this is a medium that was made for me, and I can think I can work with this.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. It's freestyle. Like, some people do very scripted shows. I like to be very unscripted. When
Yeah.
people are coming on my show, they're like, "Hey, do you have a list of questions for us?" And I'm like, I got like maybe one, and then we're gonna kind of wing it from there. Like, I like to have those conversations that go all over the place, because that's what's authentic. That's what's, like a real conversation with things. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, the name of your show is called Tech Bytes, and I saw what you did with the bytes.
yeah.
Why did you choose Tech Byte as the name and theme for your show?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've changed the name of my show many times. I went with Tech Bytes because the idea of it was that, a lot of people do get frustrated with technology. Tech can bite sometimes, like this bites. But then, there's bytes, BYTES, that's how it's spelled, because the idea also was to just do short, valuable episodes, which sometimes I'll do interviews that are a little bit longer, 30, 45 minutes. But that's really the idea of it, because like I said, when I started my show, it was Run Your Day, and it was very short bites of 5-10 minutes, kind of more personal development, self development kind of theme. And then as I kind of matured and got a little older in the space and kind of got into technology, I wanted to keep that show, because the more podcasts you have, the better ranking you can kind of have instead of starting
Yeah.
over. So I just renamed it into be that. And I don't think I have the name clout to have like the Dan Hafner show like a lot of people have. Maybe someday, but that's kind of why I wanted to kind of go with that theme.
Wow. Wow. So you started with Run Your Day, and eventually it evolved to Tech Bytes. And I'm curious, for Run Your Day was to share what's the word, quick tips of personal development, and it has evolved into Tech Bytes, right? So what is the vision now for Tech Bytes? I'm clear on the Run Your Day aspect. So you started the podcast to share quick tips for people to get started. But what's the vision for Tech Bytes?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the vision for Tech Bytes, I have kind of a show where I've altered the format of it, where the vision is to really provide very, very valuable and very simple content for people who are looking for technology or AI news or updates, or anything that can help you get an edge in business using tech, right? So I bring on a lot of very prominent experts in terms of AI, in terms of software development, even just business related topics, consulting, things like that,
Yeah.
to kind of get their insights. Because I always think that it's very worth learning from someone who's been there and done that. So I like to ask people like, hey, when you were starting out, what were some of the biggest problems that you kind of faced? How did you overcome those? So what I've kind of done is I've kind of molded the Run Your Day self-development kind of stuff into the business and the technology thing, because running a business is a form of self-development. It is a form of personal development. You learn a lot about yourself. You have to push yourself. You have to be uncomfortable. So it's not just about like, here's the technology and here's how you use it. It's
Yeah.
here's the human side of it, and here's how you can help. Like, here's how being in entrepreneurship and being in tech can push you, and you can learn from those types of things. So, so that's kind of the vision of where I want to take this show, to be kind of that type of, of container for a show.
Oh, the, so far you've been running the show. Which is predominant? Is it the self-development aspect or is it the technology aspect?
It's technology, yeah,
Okay.
technology.
Okay.
That's the dominant thing. I think sometimes we have people on, and I'll ask, they'll kind of have a show or a question that I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. And sometimes it goes down that path, but it's predominantly the technology. Yeah.
Okay. The show is called Tech Bytes. When I see the name for the first time, without knowing any clue, without no context, no explanation, and I'm like, Tech Bytes. Oh, it's a show that gives you technology tips, but very short time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Does the show lean towards that, or it's just Tech Bytes, a different part entirely?
So no, that I've not done that. That's a very good idea. I could definitely go that route. That if that's kind of what you had thought it was. Recently, one of the show structures that I've been doing that's been very popular is just going through some of the recent news updates. What's going on with OpenAI?
Yeah,
What's going on with Gemini or Nvidia, or like there's different news stories that we'll keep on, and then I'll just commentate on those, and I'll give my honest thoughts and my opinions on those types of things. And that's proven to actually be a very popular type of idea, especially for anyone who's very interested in this cutting edge AI
yeah,
and technology. Is like, how can I then use this? How can I get ahead of this? What is OpenAI doing that me as a solopreneur, as a small business owner, I can then take advantage of in the future? Like when GPT-5 comes out, how does that change the game? What do I need to be focusing on? What do I need to be thinking about? So that's one of the most popular versions of the show that I've been doing. And those are still a little bit longer, about 20, 25 minutes. But they're very, very interesting, and you can kind of keep up on the latest news because I'm kind of doing that for you. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Wow. uh, at the very beginning of, I guess the bytes, it's just making it simpler rather than condensing it to be shorter. So it does make sense. At the very beginning, when you started your podcast, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you launched your podcast?
Oh, good question. This was years ago, so I gotta remember. I think the biggest challenge I faced was consistency, was being
Mm,
consistent. I think because I was trying to publish every day. I was trying to
mm,
do 5 episodes a week. But like I said, remember, I would literally hold my
yeah.
phone and I would record and I'd publish. Um, because I had a system where I would listen to an audiobook, or I would watch a YouTube video or something related to what I was trying to study, and then I would take whatever I had learned from that, and then I would just speak that, and I would just talk like that was my discipline, right? But there were days I missed. There were weeks I missed. So it was. I think that was the hardest part, was being consistent and holding myself to. I'm going to do this every day, and I'm not gonna fail. But I did fail, right? And then it was like, okay, just don't fail 2 days in a row. Like, okay, you
Yeah.
missed a day, okay, whatever, get back on it tomorrow. Like that was the biggest, I think, challenge that I faced, was consistency for sure.
How has things changed over time now regarding consistency?
It's gotten a lot better. I mean, I will say there's still. I've been down to a two day a week, cadence with publishing. I usually publish on Tuesdays and Fridays. I will say the past couple of weeks, my consistency has fallen off a little bit. But I've just been so busy with my business kind of stuff, that it's just been like, well, I don't know if we're going to get a show out on Tuesday, but we just published, one on Friday. So it's definitely improved a lot, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the tools we use through Podmatch, through planning, just kind of having that kind of system in place. And I've gotten a lot more organized and structured about when I'm going to publish, what I'm going to publish, etc.
Yeah, at the beginning, your stories, you started your podcast with just your phone. You would turn on the recorder app and just record your thoughts, and voila, that was an episode. You take that episode and publish it on the platforms. No editing, no none of those, all the complicated processes. It was very simple. Record your voice, post it on the podcast platform. What's the platform you're using at the time?
I think it was called Anchor. It's
Oh
now
yeah,
Creators through
yeah,
Spotify. They bought
yeah,
them. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Wow,
actually still use them. I still use
wow.
them.
That's
Yeah.
what I use. So that's why I'm nodding my head. Wow, it's free. So I'm like, I mean, it's free. Why,
Yeah.
why, why pay for it when it's free? I'm like, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's another one. I met the owner of Buzzsprout. Have you ever heard of
yeah,
Buzzsprout?
yeah. I know Buzzsprout.
Yeah. I've met the owner of them. I met last year at a conference, and I've been meaning to switch over to them, but then I just am like, I'm just like, yeah, this works. So I won't. Maybe someday I'll do it. I think they have a lot more powerful tools if you want to monetize, you want to run ads or things like that. But yeah, as of right now, yeah, just using creators.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the other thing that Spotify for creators doesn't have now is the ability to do dynamic ads where you can put a clip, maybe 30 seconds clip, and it will run all through your episodes automatically. And I feel that they will put that feature soon because YouTube just announced rolling out that feature. I don't know if you heard the news where usually instead of baking in the sponsorship, you can just put the sponsorship in your video. And when you're like, oh, it's enough time, you can turn it off and it won't show in your videos.
Interesting. I did not hear that. Like that's again one thing I think that Buzzsprout does allow you to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
a lot better. But that's interesting. I'd be interested to see if creators does come out with that. That'd be exciting.
yeah. YouTube is rolling that out for podcasters, and so I feel like Spotify for creators would do that because um, they had that feature before on Anchor when it was still Anchor, but then I don't. It was audio only, and then since
Yeah.
Spotify for creators started with this video thing, they had to stop that feature.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
they had to stop that feature, and so maybe in the future when they, you're trying to like be like YouTube, everybody's trying to be like YouTube, they might put that in. Until then, we'll be with Spotify for creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think if the ad is baked in, it gives you opportunity to negotiate more. If you're running ads because you're like, oh, your ad's going to be on my episode for life, so just pay more.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah,
Definitely does.
yeah. Wow. At the very beginning, when you started recording your episode, did you have any fears about putting your voice out there?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I mean, I remember publishing, I think, for like the first time, and it was pretty scary. You're like, ugh. And then
Uh,
it's I think it took me a good 30 or 40 episodes to really like find the cadence, the rhythm, of not saying every time or stopping for 20 seconds or
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And then now like I get complimented all the time on when I'm hosting people on my show. They're just like, wow, you're just such a good interviewer. Like you do such a good job. And I'm like, well, I've done this like hundreds of times at this point. I should be good, If I wasn't good, I'd be
Ah,
worried.
shout out to all the guests we used to experiment to learn and honing our skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
no, it was scary. It was like, and then I don't think anyone really likes to go back and listen to themselves, but for any beginners out there, I would really recommend go
uh,
back and just force yourself to listen to yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, which it is. Because that's how I learned a lot. I was like, ooh, I'd be sitting there and I'd kind of take notes and I'd be like, okay, I really need to not pause so much, or I need to, be a little bit more direct in what I'm saying. So that was really helpful.
yeah, yeah. For me, I wouldn't really recommend if you're just doing your first two episodes or first three episodes because it can get kind of discouraging.
Yeah, just get used to that publishing cadence and don't even worry about the downloads or the listens it's not about that. It's just about you figuring out your cadence, your voice, that kind of stuff. That's what the first 5 to 10 episodes are about anyway.
Yeah. Since we're talking about fears and putting your voice out there, was there a particular mistake you made that taught you so much about podcasting?
Particular mistake. I don't know if I've ever, made a big mistake with it. I would say that one of the biggest things I did learn, there was about a year that I put my podcast on pause. I just didn't publish
Ooh,
anything. So I learned a lot about that. Like I learned that, I had built it up to be quite large. Um, I think that was right around when COVID hit or something. There was just a lot of life things going on, business, this, that, the other thing, and just decided like this was not something I wanted to keep going. It wasn't bringing
yeah,
in money for me at the time. It was just like, okay, this is just a waste of time at the time, right? And I learned that when I started back up, it was not the right thing to do to pause that. I should have at least intermittently published or things like that, because it was very hard to get back to the level of viewership and listenership that I had once had. So yeah, I will say that was. I mean, I don't classify that as a mistake, but it was just something I had to do, and I just decided to do at that time. But definitely learned a lot from that. Definitely
yeah.
learned.
Earlier on you were talking about how doing the podcast for a while. Now you're a better interviewer, you're a better speaker, and when you interview people, your guests, they do tell you that, oh, I like the way you interview. You're a great interviewer. How did the podcasting help you hone in some of those skills?
I'll tell you what, I think podcasting has single-handedly been the best thing that has helped me with sales in my business by far. And I think I really do. I think that I think just learning how to talk, to articulate your points, to think through. I mean, even though I do an unscripted show, I have to think through, like, where am I going with this episode? What do I want to have? Sometimes I'll just have 3 bullets on a piece of paper. Yep, I want to talk about this next. I want to talk about this next.
Yeah.
So I will say that I think it has been one of the single best things that has enabled me to, when people come to me or I get leads for my business, to be able to talk with them with confidence, with charisma, and kind of bring that podcasting personality into it. I think has really, really helped me. When I look back on it, I'm like, wow, like that's very useful. And then to boot, I think there's times where a client or a prospect will be asking me questions about this and that and whatever, and I say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure if you're a podcaster, but I did a really cool episode on that particular thing. I'll send you the link for it right here. And they love that. You know what I mean?
Quick break. Before we continue, I'd love to invite you to join the My Podcast Story newsletter. Each week, I share highlights from our guest stories, behind-the-scenes podcasting tips, and resources to help you grow your own show. You can sign up at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. Now, let's get back to the episode. Sometimes you tell your customers to go listen to an episode that answer the specific question that they're asking.
Yeah, because what that also does is it gives you more credibility in their eyes that you have already been down this path. You've figured out this question and even just went way deeper into that than anything I could tell them on a half-hour or 45-minute Zoom call. There's another 20-minute episode that they can listen to that exact thing about. That's super, super useful.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed about in business is that people trust those who understand the problem better.
100%. Like when you go on a guided tour or like a kayaking thing or a canoeing thing, whitewater rafting, you want an expert that's been down the river before. You don't want somebody that's never done it before, because they're just as green as you. You want someone that's kind of been there before and figured it out. So it's the same kind of thing in business.
Other than podcasting being an educational resource for your customers, in what other ways has podcasting shaped your career, your business in this context?
And what other ways? I mean, I think with podcast guesting, just like I'm doing right now, coming on your show, I think it's helped shape that, because I think it's given me a way to introduce myself, and it's also really cool to say that I have a show. And when I come on other shows like this, I can be like, hey, if you really like what I talk about, you want to hear more of my sultry, smooth voice, you can go check out my show, right?
Yeah.
So that's a joke. But that has been really helpful, because that just gives me a mechanism to share and to get myself out there, and to kind of have a business card, kind of like a virtual business card, for people to get to know me better. And it has really helped me meet a lot of people that I would not have otherwise been able to meet. I met a man that came on my show, and he runs one of the biggest development companies in the United States, much bigger than my company. He was one of the original guys that was publishing apps on the App Store when the App Store was invented, like when it first came out. OG, yes, for sure. And I never would have, got to meet him if it weren't for having my show, because it was like, hey, I'm interested to come on your show and talk with you. Like, awesome. That's super cool, So it just opened a lot of doors. It's opened a lot of doors.
That's definitely a standout episode. Do you remember the episode title or the number?
I do not off the top of my head. I have like 400 plus ones, but
What's the name of the guest?
Go look.
What's the name of the guest?
Devin. I believe his first name is Devin. I'll have to look. And I'll confirm that for you.
Okay.
I'm spacing out right
You
now.
know, because that's an exciting story that I know a lot of persons will want to pull the trade and say, oh, yeah, I love to listen to what that conversation seemed like. Instead of just what's the word, leaving them in suspense. I'm like, okay, here's a part you can follow, so you can go check out the episode and listen to it if you want to hear more about that story. Because I know you guys talked for a really long time and really went deep into a lot of things uh, regarding the business. At the
Yeah.
beginning of the show, you shared with me some of the download numbers that the show is currently having. And I'm curious, every podcaster, the thing I love about podcasting is that podcasting is your creation, and you as the creator get to decide the rules. And for me, I'm curious, how do you specifically, as a podcaster, measure your own growth and success for your podcast beyond just the download numbers and all that?
Yeah, I think retention is definitely one of the measurements. Creators does that pretty well, and it's different because it's on Spotify. It only measures things on Spotify, whereas when I go in and I look at my analytics in creators, it gives me, uh, you know, I have a very small sliver of my audience listens to me on Spotify.
Wow.
So my stats are not very accurate on there because I have a huge chunk that is just other, right? It's just other. It's not even Apple Podcasts.
Uh,
But so it's like, okay, where do they come from? But I know I have my podcast on my website and I kind of have it on an app that we also have and in different places. So that might be, a big place where people are consuming that content. And I think, and I think I measure it in terms of, retention is definitely one. How long are people actually listening to this?
yeah,
Which Spotify, Creators for Spotify does give you some of that. But then a lot of times I measure it in some of the intangible things of like, how did I feel about the production and the quality of that content? And it's kind of it's a vanity metric. It's not really something that matters to the audience, but that's just one thing that I also measure. There's times when I've done solo episodes and I stop the recording and I'm like, that was a garbage episode. I did not enjoy. I don't think I did a very good job. And then there's
yeah.
ones where I do an interview or I do my own solo ones and I'm done with it and I'm like, I crushed
Oh,
that. Like
I'm a genius.
that felt good. Like I felt like that was, confidence. So I kind of have like an internal measurement that I measure with that is like, do I feel like I would listen to this as just a normal user if I came across this, and that's usually one thing that I've learned to kind of measure at least my own performance with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. You are into no code development professionally, and you've been doing that even way before you started this podcast. Is there any way you've seen no code development intersects with your podcast journey? Like, are there any parallels between no code development and podcasting?
A little bit. So there's a big podcast network. We're part of it here at Podmatch. So there's a lot of people doing that. I've been approached by a couple of people. The thing is with podcasting, there's so many tools out there already that exist. There, as I'm sure there's
Yeah.
just so many tools that people have spent millions and millions of dollars to be able to build and provide for us podcasters. So there's not a whole lot of, like new building using no code to build new tools for podcasters. But one thing I will say is, even a tool like we're using right now, Riverside, I use
Yeah.
the tool as well. That could be kind of considered a no code way to kind of build these kind of things, right? You don't have to go in and be super meticulous with the editing. You can be, but you don't have to be. You can have AI just boom, it makes it studio quality sound. It cuts
Yeah.
out all these other parts. The ums and the ahs and the pauses and things like that. That is a no code approach. Even though it's AI, AI is becoming a no code approach, right? It's becoming, hey, just do this, and you can go into Riverside and you can say, what insights could I have? Or you can generate show notes with one click. You can generate, titles and subtitles. That is a no code approach, whether you realize it or not,
Yeah.
and that's something that they have baked into these platforms that now allows you to move faster, to produce better and to produce more without having to worry about getting in the weeds of how do I export this and then go over here and then edit it and then move it back over here and do all these other things. It's just streamlined, you know? So, yeah, there's a lot of cool ways that they intersect for sure.
I want us to lean a bit on your expertise as a no-code developer. You see, one of the problems I've noticed about podcasting, and I don't know if you've observed this too, is that the moment an episode gets published, that is the end of the episode. Especially if you're doing an evergreen show. You know, if we published a show maybe 4 months ago, that's it. You know, that conversation was great. We have a great time. You know, we did the editing and the description. Voila, on to the next thing, right? And you know, that conversation is still relevant. It's still evergreen. The topic we discussed about is something that's not even changing. It's probably maybe business wise, how to start a business. It's probably your business story, and your business story is not necessarily going to change. I mean, you could add on it, but it's not like, oh, I started the podcast with my phone, and then tomorrow you're telling me, oh no, I didn't start my podcast with my phone. I started with right. I'm like, no. Like that's the same story. I know you've done things, but that's the same story. But we don't really go back to repurpose, to go back and really touch on these the content we have and really allow them to work as much as they should. Do you have any solution and advice for podcasters using no-code tools?
You know, that's a very good idea, and I totally agree with you. There's so many things that yeah, like you can have an interview, you can do a podcast, and isn't that one of the things that people say that YouTube is so great for? You're creating that evergreen content that's just always there, and it's the same with podcasts. It always lives there, right? As long as you have the show published. You know what would be a cool idea? If somebody built something where you could insert your show your show URL, your RSS feed, right? And then it would go through your previous episodes and it could extract themes and it could extract data points and it could extract like AI summaries of saying, hey, you really tend to talk about this a lot. What if you repurpose this show? You might want to have this guest back on. You might want to do these things. Like that would be a really cool tool for podcasters. I'm not saying that exists. I'm not saying that I might not build that. That sounds really cool.
Wow.
But yeah, that because that's so useful. You know, like I've seen a couple of people who, you know, you almost build up a network when you have guests on and things like that. And I've had a couple of people, only ever a couple of people come back and do a second episode. But there's a huge, like you said, that there's a huge possibility for networking there and additional content, additional things that could be useful. So you could certainly build that with a no-code tool, like something that was like an extractor. That's a cool idea.
While you were just sharing that idea, I just thought of something. And that is, I don't know if you know the app called Readwise.
No, never heard of it.
Okay, so the Readwise app, what that does basically is, you know, how we read books and we like, you know, we highlight section, right? So like, oh, this is such a good quote. You know, we see some tweets. Oh, I love this tweet, such a brilliant tweet. And but you know, 4 years goes by and like nobody really has that time to go back to it. So what Readwise does for you is that, you know, if you listen to podcast episode and you clip the parts, you know, after some time, it will just randomly send you a daily list of some of the quotes, you know, via email, and you see, oh wow, this is such a brilliant quote. You know, it reminds you and it puts things in perspective. And I'm like, wait, what if we had a system that, you know, goes through some of the episodes like randomly, maybe not randomly, maybe after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years, and you know, it takes maybe 2 to 3 of the quotes, of the really powerful quotes the guests shared, and he said, wow, it's been 3 years since we released an episode. Thank you so much. These are some of the quotes that I still they still sound profound even after 3 years. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And you go through it and then you send it, or you could take those quotes and post it on the tweet and say, yeah, it's been 3 years before we do, and tag them. And these are things that nobody really has that time to go back and be, you know, you have all this other, you still have to do the show. Plus going back, that's a lot.
Yeah. So, I really like that idea. I really like that because I think what you said too is relevant. Like you publish you put all this time and effort into making a show just like this, but you still have to promote it. You still have to make sure that it's put out there. But again, like it can be a short shelf life. It can be something that is, not like you said, like in 3 years, is this episode still going to get listens? Maybe, but it won't be as much as it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
So ways to refresh it and keep it fresh, I think would be really, really neat. It's a very
Yeah.
cool idea.
And I also like the part you talked about recommendation engine because sometimes as we're starting the journey, we interview a guest and it's a great conversation, but 6 months after, it's how we read some books and at first when we read the book, it's a good book. But maybe 1 year after, we'll go back to read that book and you're like, what happened to me? What was I thinking? How come I didn't see the value the first time I read this book? What was happening to me? And now you have a different perspective. Maybe you've gone through life experience and all that. Same thing I see for podcast episode, you could go back and you really see, wow, this episode was actually really good. Wow, I'm not promoting this episode enough. And then you could say, okay, the angel will do that and say, okay, you should interview this guest again, right? And it gets to follow because how do I put it now? It just occurred to me that as podcaster, we're always thinking of the new. We already have guests we've interviewed, and we don't even ask ourselves, well, how do we leverage the opportunity, the relationship, even without even thinking of how do I get new guests, and then for the content, how do I promote more of the content? And I feel like if we find a way to like really do more of what we already have, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's like going through and finding wisdom in what was already done.
Yeah, I see what you did there. That would be a great concept. I would start thinking with some of the two. If I come up with something, something workable, I will let you know.
Yeah, that's a very,
Yeah,
very interesting idea.
yeah, I'll let you know because with the automation and AI out there, I'm always asking myself. I feel like I'm not really using AI and automation really well. I mean, I use it for the editing and other stuff, but I'm like that stuff is just basic. I mean, with what AI and automation can do now, and I'm like, no, no, no. I need to touch that power.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about the benefits of hosting. We talked about AI. We talked about no code, and even one of the things you talked about is how these tools have AI baked into them, and that's really good. It's even making podcasting easier compared to 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Yeah, using the Riverside is way way easier because I'm like in 30, 40 minutes I'm done editing an episode, and I'm like, wow. I'm like this usually would take 6 hours.
Yeah, I remember how I used to do it. I used the tool Audacity, and I would have to export and upload and edit and export and upload and do these things 300 times. And that's probably why a lot of times what came down to the decision for me to put my podcast on pause for a while was it was just so much manual work that just wasn't paying off. And now I mean, think about it. Is it a good thing that it's easier to produce? Does that take away from like the hard work that's required to produce something?
No.
Or I don't think so either, because for me, like you said, I think it's just like this. We can do our Riverside recording, can let it process, you can come back in. I do about 10 to 15 minutes worth of editing for an episode that I do. And then I click export, and then boom, I can publish right to creators for Spotify. And I think, did you see that Riverside's
Yeah,
having the ability to host soon?
no, okay, the host, I've seen that hosting, but they added the ability to publish to YouTube. I used it for 20 to 30 episodes. I have multiple podcasts, so I used it for a lot of my episodes. It saved me the data cost. But then they removed the feature and they went back to just publishing directly on Spotify. And I don't know why they did it.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you can go live to them.
You could
But
publish,
yeah,
you know how you publish on Spotify? It's to show you Spotify for creators. They had YouTube to it. So you connect your YouTube channel, it published directly to your YouTube with the title and description and all those things. And that did save time. But for some reason, I don't know why. I think it's a new product. I just noticed that it disappeared. And I'm like,
huh. I
what's
didn't even
going
know
on?
that was there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing with software. Sometimes people take that out because it's not being used, or not enough people would, find it valuable or something like that. So yeah, that's very interesting. When usually when you put features in, you don't take them out right away.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
that's
they're testing
interesting.
it. They're still perfecting certain things. They even had the option to publish your shorts. There was the shorts part, there was the YouTube part. So those clips that Riverside would make, you can directly send it to YouTube without having to download and then re-upload.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
See what I mean? Like there's so many things that just like AI has just changed the game for this to just be able to do so many cooler things so much faster. And it's just it's what a time to be alive,
yeah. I feel like as you were saying earlier on that if if it's faster and easier to do, does that take away from the value of the podcast? First of all, the work itself has nothing to do with the content per se. Having to edit an episode for like 3-4 hours. I mean, it makes the content easier, better, and to consume, but it doesn't necessarily ease the content per se, because now we have time to focus on living life and actually having stories to share. We also have time to do the business, for you, if you have a business podcast, because you don't want to be someone that's always talking, and they have nothing to show as a business person. Same thing with other areas of content. And it also have time to focus on ideas rather than that 4 hours you would have spent on editing, spend 30 minutes and the other hours you have to do other things.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Yeah. Podcasting as a whole is built for those who have the heart, right? And I like it, and they should keep it that way, because it doesn't have the stats like the other platforms where you post and you go viral. There's nothing like that on podcast.
I would say it's a lot harder to. You might be able to, but it's because I mean I heard this the other day. Think about it. Like most people that that listen to podcasts, myself included, a lot of times it's a secondary activity, right? You're usually, if not almost always, doing something else. That's the beauty of it. With the YouTube, you want to be able to watch. You want to be kind of have at least undivided attention. With a podcast, you can be walking your dog, you can be cleaning your house, you can be doing the dishes, cooking dinner, whatever the case might be. So yeah, it can be a little bit harder to have those like go viral moments or those types of things. But when you think about how to create content for someone that's in that headspace, like that you're probably not going to have their undivided attention. That makes the approach a little bit different to what you create. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that is even a better thing, because it means that they will give you more time compared to, because as a business owner, you have time where you're like, oh, let me get on YouTube and see what's happening, right? You maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, and you watch a couple of things like, oh, this tutorial, oh, this thing is new, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, that's it for today. I have other things to do. You go do business, you go walk your dog, spend time with your loved ones and all that, right? But as a podcast, right, I can get in, I can follow you to other areas of your life. While you're walking your dog, I'm there with you. While you while you're doing some boring business activity, I'm there with you. And all those other things. So I can go with you, but I don't really see a YouTube video following you in the office when you're like, I'm working on these boring parts. I'm trying to compile this boring part of the business that doesn't require my complete focus. Nah. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I think that's why podcasts can be such a powerful medium to build trust and to build that relationship with your audience, because it's hard because you don't see anybody. Like even YouTube subscribers, like you might see them in the comments sometimes, but with podcasts, that I know when I see, hey, we had 30 people listen to this on the first day, or there's 50 people downloading this. I have no idea who they are. Like they don't comment, they're very passive, right? They just click play and they click pause whenever they're done and they move on with their life, right? So, but now I've started to get more and more people that approach me and they say, yeah, I listened to your podcast, or I saw you on this show that just like this, like I was, as a guest on the show. And I just think that I know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, that's cool, because that didn't happen for a very long time, and now there's people like, I've done enough of these that people are like, Dan knows what he's talking about. And that's like a really cool place to be. It's a really cool place.
Yeah. Wow. We have so much to talk about. What's next for TechBytes and your podcasting journey? I mean, earlier on at the beginning of the show, you were telling me that your show hit a major milestone of reaching 30,000 downloads.
Yeah, I mean, the next phase is just keep growing. I think one thing I know, my view is a little messed up. Like I said, I had some technical issues today with my computer. I think it's on its last leg, honestly. But what I would really like to do is I have a pretty nice room in the studio kind of here. But I would kind of like to maybe try to kind of make that a little bit better, maybe improve, kind of the visual aesthetic of, maybe put this up a little higher. Kind of just maybe, I think the next phase for me is just really focusing more on like the quality of, like the visuals, the audio, kind of just producing, just kind of continuing to improve the quality of what I produce. But then also you've given me a lot of ideas, a lot of inspiration to kind of keep going and think, kind of maybe we'll go back to some shorter episodes. Maybe we'll go back to a little a little more, of an educational type content rather than a commentating content in times. Um, so yeah, I'm just never stop experimenting. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the next phase for what I'm going to do with my show. I think.
Yeah, it will be exciting to for me to circle back in 6 months, 1 year from now, and see how everything is going. I'm like, yeah, what did you do? And like, oh yeah, we've been able to do this. We've been able to do this. That'll been an exciting conversation.
Yeah, look forward to it.
What advice would you give to someone who is probably thinking of starting a podcast or struggling with showing up and staying consistent?
Yeah, use a planning tool, something that just kind of makes it useful for you to follow along and to be able to plan things out. Like I'm not sure if you're aware of the workflows thing in Podmatch.
Yeah,
I use that. That helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to focus. It comes down to not having. I mean, we're all especially if you're doing it for business. It's very easy to get shiny object syndrome and to
yeah,
chase this and chase that and chase this. But there's a balance there. Like I just said, like I found something that works. I found that the commentating works and it has leveled up my show. But then I hear someone like you come on and say, "Oh, I would expect it to be bites and be shorter," and I'm like,
yeah,
"That's interest. That's worth thinking about." So I think at the same time of like focus and be dedicated to one. I think focus is follow one course until successful is actually
yeah.
a good
It's very
acronym for that.
yeah,
But at the same time, be willing to experiment. Be willing to admit like, hey, this isn't working. Maybe we need to try something different. But then don't be afraid to double down on the things that you find are working. Even if you're
yeah,
like, I had no idea this would work, just double down on it and keep going because clearly you
yeah,
found something. So
yeah.
that's what I would say.
Well, thank you for that advice, Dan. Where can we listen to your podcast and also connect with
Yep. So we're on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. I think it's on again anywhere that it's released through creators is really I think the big platforms there. We also have it on the website at dappernoCode.com, so you can get all the video feeds and everything there. And if you want to connect with me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Dan Hafner.
you? Well, thank you so much, Dan, for sharing your podcast story with me. I have a lot of ideas just from listening and having this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm very excited to think about this idea we had for extracting content and things like that. I'm
Yeah,
very, very intrigued by that idea. That's
yeah.
really cool.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I hope you enjoyed listening to this journey as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. And don't forget to join the newsletter at mypodcaststory.com/join for more stories and podcasting insights. Until next time, keep telling your story because someone out there needs to hear it.